What's going on, you guys? It is Isaac. Welcome back to another video. Today I got something a little bit different for you guys. I have a drug tier list video. Now, this is all of the drugs that I could remember taking off the top of my head. I can't remember all of them, of course, but this is the ones that I remember and put together for this list. And I want to preface that I do not recommend the consumption of any drug at all. This video is for harm reduction and entertainment purposes. And most of these drugs I do not consume anymore. I just wanted to preface that. So I do not recommend anyone do drugs. So first off, we're going to start off hot. This is the only substance on this list I personally haven't done that I know of. It could have happened at some point. We were popping some pressies, that was for sure. But heroin, we're going to just immediately slap that one into the F tier. And I know there might be some heroin addicts who are watching right now who are a little hard pressed that I put that at F. Now, heroin might feel wonderful. It might be a great time. And I'm not going to deny that. I can't say for myself if it's a great time or not. I don't want to do it, and I never have. But I would say it's one of the more destructive. I just have a hunch that heroin is not great for you. And I don't recommend anything to do with a needle or even storing it. So heroin is going to go straight into F tier. Now, carts. Carts are great for certain things like being discreet. If you're trying to smoke at a function, or like you're at school or you're at work and you want to get a little stony baloney, it is a great time. For being discreet, I would put it at S tier, or I would put it at A. I would put it at A for being discreet. It's still got a little bit of a scent, but it is a lot less smelly than normal bud. But me personally, I am gonna put carts at B tier. I'm not a big fan of carts personally. I just don't enjoy carts as much as the act of rolling up a J and smoking it. That's just satisfying. It's part of the experience. And carts just kind of takes away from it. There is also quite a bit of boof carts out there to this day. You still risk smoking some of that vitamin E acetate. We're past the stage of them serving up dank vapes to random fucks and Supreme carts. We're past that. But there's still a ton of fakes out there, and I'm just not a huge fan of carts myself. Next up, we have Kratom. Now, Kratom was an odd one. It was a curveball one that I threw up on here. Didn't even know if I wanted to mention it, but I guess it technically counts as a drug. I believe it's technically in the opiate family. And I'm going to put Kratom at B tier. The reason being isn't personally for me the effects, which they are nice. I've done Kratom. It feels like that warm chocolate milk running through your veins. You feel a bit nice. You feel pretty laid back in the doses that I've done. But the reason I'm putting it up so high, it's not a substance I typically consume. But the fact that it helps people wean off opiates, harder opiates, as well as liquor, I gotta put Kratom at minimum of B tier. I think it does have a very good beneficial impact for people who are trying to wean off harder drugs. I do not recommend Kratom for people who aren't weaning off other drugs though, because unpopular opinion, or contrary to popular belief, I should say, is Kratom is quite addictive. It is still an addictive drug. It's far better than being addicted to kratom than something like heroin or fentanyl or another opiate, something in that family. But it is not something I would recommend to people who don't do other opiates or liquor. I just don't recommend it for the average sober person because it can be addictive. Next up, we have Nutmeg. I know people are going to say, this is a fucking spice. Why do you have it on this list? I've actually done nutmeg before to get high. I was 13 years old and I ate a few grams of nutmeg and I felt absolutely nothing until my heart rate started massively increasing and I was sweating bullets a little bit. I had the cold sweats going. And the only thing that stood out that was kind of a high feeling is I saw my friend. We were running around being kids playing tag. This is fucked that I did nutmeg at 13. Don't do this shit. Do not. Nutmeg is terrible. All the trip story I've heard from nutmeg are terrible. But the only effect that I personally had was I saw my friend run up the stairs and I chased after him and I was looking around for him and he vanished. And then I looked back down the stairs and he's like, what are you doing? I'm down here. So yeah, I hallucinated that man running up the stairs and that never happened. But this shit is horrible. Never do nutmeg. I've heard of terror trips that last like 48 hours. So we're putting nutmeg in the fucking F tier. If you're doing nutmeg, there's something going awry in your life. And speaking about going awry in your life, we have Delsum, the high school fucking fan favorite. The broke 14-year-old's great Tuesday afternoon is spent drinking the Delsum. Now, Delsum I've only consumed in high school when I was broke as shit, had no money, and I was desperate to get high. And I'm going to put Delsum at D tier. I'm going to put Delsum and any DXM at D tier because it is not a great time. It is quite fucking disgusting. And if you chug a bottle of Delsum or anything else with DXM like triple C's or anything with DXM in it, you are gonna have a rough go at it. You are gonna probably be yakking. You're not gonna have a fun trip. And it's not a great time. But it is better than heroin and nutmeg. I will say that. It's a shitty substance. It is terrible if you're doing Delsum or any type of robo trip past the age of 14. You might want to reconsider your life choices. It is not a fun time, and your stomach and liver are not going to be happy with you. But it is better than these two substances below it. Now, next up is alcohol. Another thing where people will argue if it's a drug or not, but it gets you inebriated, so I'm going to put it on this list. So, alcohol, I would personally put at B tier. Now, alcohol is middle of the road for me. I love it. It's a good time. I don't drink too often. I try to limit my drinking because alcoholism runs in the family. You know, it also drives in the family, but we don't talk about it. Okay, anyways. Alcohol is a good time in moderation. If you drink too much, it is destructive. It ruins lives. Some people just can't handle their liquor. I know people have had their experiences with angry drunks or sad drunks, and that's a terrible time. But when you're with a good group of friends, you're getting crossfaded, you crack open a bottle of some good whiskey, it just enhances the night. So I would put it at B tier. Now, the two ahead are psychedelics, and I can't really put a fair ranking for psychedelics. I haven't done too many psychedelics in my day. I've only tripped off acid once and done shrooms once, and those were only little doses. So I kind of have a shitty ranking, a not so trustworthy ranking of psychedelics. So if you disagree, please let me know. But I am going to throw acid at B tier. And the reason being is the only time I've done acid, I took half a tab and I faced a king joint to the face. And it smacked my fucking soul. I will tell you what, it smacked me in all sort of directions. And I had a wonderful time. I had a blissful time. It was fun as shit. But all the people that I know who consumed acid quite a bit, at certain points, they hit a point where they end up having a terrible trip. Now, those terrible trips can be beneficial. They can be. They can waken you up and make you experience stuff and make you go through shit with no ego and kind of knock some sense into you sometimes. But it can also kind of, make you have a little psychosis depending on your mental background and such, It's also not natural. It is formed in a lab. So for that, I have to put it at B tier. Now, shrooms, I have not done more than 2 grams at a time, so I can't really gauge this one, but I'm going to put it at A. And the reason I put it above acid is because it is natural and it doesn't last as long. If you're having a mushroom trip, it lasts like 8 to 10 hours estimated. It varies, but it doesn't last all fucking day like acid. It doesn't last 12 hours. It's a bit shorter. And it's a little softer from what I remember. I haven't done either in a long time, and I can't really gauge a proper ranking for them. So you guys comment down below what you would put the psychedelics at. I'm a pussy and I haven't done them enough. But when I did acid, it was just a bit more aggressive. Not in a bad way, but it was just a tad more aggressive. Shrooms was a bit nicer and just a little smoother sailing, And everyone I know who does do psychedelics like that just prefers shrooms. They loved acid, had a horrendous trip, and then they went to shrooms and had a great time and haven't really ego diffed. And if they did, it wasn't as fucking skull fucking as acid. Now, next up is ketamine. Now, ketamine is something I've only dabbled in a little bit recently, and I am gonna honestly put it at C tier. I think ketamine is a great time. I personally do enjoy it. I just think that the long-term health effects, if you abuse it, are fucking awful. Now, if you're doing it just here and there, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend any of these substances. But I gotta put it at C tier just for the long-term abuse effects. I don't want K cramps. K-holing doesn't sound like a good time. I personally haven't K-holed yet. I've been a little close, but I haven't been there yet, so I can't gauge my ranking on that experience. But the long-term health effects for abuse is just not a fun time. It is a good drug, but it is a fun time, I should say, not a good drug. It's a fun time, but I can't in good conscience put it above C tier. Next up, we have Percocets. Now, I've only done Percocet once, and I am 99% sure it was laced with fent, but that's a story for another day, so I can't really gauge a good story, but I'm putting this straight at F tier. Everybody that I've had that has had a Percocet addiction has went down a rabbit hole of degeneracy to feed their addiction. I have never met a group of people that are addicted to a substance that are as toxic as Percocet. This substance, when you get really addicted to it, just grabs you by the fucking throat and just takes over. And a lot of people I've met who have been addicted to fucking perks are just zombies. And not only that, they will rob their buddies to get their next fix. Percocet is a fucked experience and a fucked substance to consume. Now, next up, we have Xanax. Xanax is also a fucked substance, and out of all of these substances is honestly on my number one worst regret of trying, just because I personally believe to this day that it fucked up my long-term memory. That being said, I think it is better than Percocet. I'm gonna put it at D tier. It is not a substance I would ever do again or ever recommend for the life of me. But personally, when I did it, I had a fucking ball. I am quite an anxious person, and when I would do Xanax, all of those worries and anxiety and stress would just wash away. That being said, any person that I knew that abused Xanax just turned into a brain dead moron and also would rob people because they would be off the bar, they would not fucking think about their actions, and they would rob a grocery store and wake up the next day in jail. Now, Xanax is better than Perks, but not by much. Especially in this day and age, finding a real Xanax script is not the easiest ordeal. Now, next up, we have MDMA. Wait, did I put MDMA on here twice? I think I did. I think I'm a dumbass. I think we put MDMA on here twice. So, MDMA, I'm gonna personally put it at A tier. MDMA, well, something not something you should consume often. I wouldn't even consume it more than twice a year. I wouldn't even recommend consuming it ever. But I'm going to tell you right now that MDMA is a fucking ball. And if you do it safely, if you test your shit, and you don't do it often, I don't recommend it. But it is very rare to die off MDMA. Super rare that it will have a bad negative effect on you like that. Now, the big negative of MDMA is that if you abuse this substance, if you do it once a week, once a month, it's gonna take a toll on your fucking brain health. It is gonna take a toll on you, and it is not gonna be a great time for your mental health and your brain. It is very neurotoxic. But me personally, I think it's a fucking ball. I don't recommend it, and it has some horrible health effects, but if you do it in a smart manner and you don't overdo your dosage, you do yourself a proper dosage, and you do the due diligence of your research and waiting between doing Molly, it can be a great fucking time. Now, next up, we're going to skip this because this is also Molly. I'm a dumbass. We have concentrates. Now, I love me some good concentrates, but I'm not a big dab guy. I am a flower man. That being said, I'm going to put dabs at A tier. I fucking love dabs. Dabs are a great time. They are very fun, but they are definitely for people who are true stoners. It is not something that you do with no tolerance. But if you are a true stoner and bud's not doing it for you anymore, dabs are a fun fucking time. The terps are lovely, and the experience is definitely a bit different than flower, and I would say that it is a very fun time. And being weed, it automatically goes into A tier, unless it's a cart. That deserves B and B. And I just remember, this isn't MDMA. This is edibles. I am just a dumbass. Edibles, I am honestly gonna put at S tier. I don't do edibles too often, but every time I do edibles, it is a fucking wonderful time. I get zooted out of my mind. Now, I personally like the act of smoking a lot more than eating an edible, but I have never had a bad edible experience, no matter how fucking stoned I get. Even if I tweak out a little bit, I have a glorious time. I love edibles. They are S tier for me, for sure. And another S tier is just going to be bud. That's going to be at the top of everything. Bud is just a great time. It is safe. And it is just a good time for stress relief, for hanging out with, being social with people. It is just the top tier substance on this list. And rightfully so, it goes at S. Now, next up, we have Adderall. Now, Adderall is a funny one because I loved Adderall when I did it. That being said, I can never do it again because I love it, and I have an addictive personality. Adderall is something that made me feel like a fucking god. I am a antisocial and socially anxious person, but off the Adderall, I feel like I could pull Ariana Grande with no issues whatsoever. Now, you might be asking why I don't have blow or other amphetamines up here. I refuse to ever do blow, and I'm never going to do it because Adderall was already strong enough for me, and I have no interest in amphetamines besides Molly. I am going to be honest. So I am going to personally put it at C tier. This substance is only really good for people who are super socially anxious, as well as people with ADHD, of course. But recreationally, it is very nice for anxiety, and it is very good to get, like, shit done. That being said, it can be fun, but it is more a substance people do to, say, like, pass a test, or just something people do in school or college or anything of the sort to get shit done. I personally can't put it above C. I really enjoyed it when I did it, but it's also just a little nasty and just not something I recommend, and something that I think is overprescribed in a disgusting amount. They just prescribe this shit to children like candy. It is fucked. Now, speaking of prescribing shit to children, this was my first ever script. I was 10 years old and they gave me a Ritalin script. Now, this shit right here is the worst fucking pill I've ever popped. Now, I'm not talking in terms of physical effects on your health, but mentally, I have to put it at F. I have never had such a horrendous come down on any substance than Ritalin. Ritalin feels disgusting, and it makes you feel on top of the world, similar to Addy, at least for me. But the come down, every time I was doing it when I was prescribed, I would be bawling my fucking eyes out. I have never had such a bad come down from any other substance than Ritalin. So I have to put it at F tier. I've never had a worse come down. And I know I haven't done blow, I haven't experienced the true come downs that could be far worse. But Ritalin made me so fucking depressed. I hated it. Fuck Ritalin. Now, there is certain substances that I didn't put on here that are just too niche, I guess. Too fucking specific for scripts and such. But I thought this was the main ones that came to my mind. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with anything on this tier list. Give me your tier list down below, and I hope you guys have a great day and appreciate you guys for watching. Just remember, I don't recommend doing any substances. I don't condone it, and drugs are bad. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys drop a thumbs up. Make sure you get subscribed. Let's hit 2K subscribers this year. And I love you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.